Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, my friend Derek from the Mad Chatters podcast joins me to discuss our recent Walt Disney World vacations. Now, obviously, a Walt Disney World vacation right now during the pandemic isn't your typical Walt Disney World vacation. So, I thought you might like to hear an unfiltered conversation about our experiences. It's all coming your way right after this. Fellow Honey, I Shrunk the Kids fans, rejoice. As a huge Honey, I Shrunk the Kids fan myself, I'm always looking for new merchandise featuring one of my favorite film franchises. And since I can't find as much as I'd like, I decided to collaborate with Who's Its and What's Its, who have been creating quality, magical apparel for years inspired by your favorite Disney stories. In this age of wearing face masks and being required to wear a face mask to visit a Disney park, why not do it in style? So Disney Coast to Coast and Who's Its and What's Its brings to you the Zielinski Labs face mask inspired by Professor Wayne Zielinski from the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise. The mask features the Zielinski Labs logo along with iconography from the classic Backyard Adventure. But these masks are only available to order for a very limited time. Your last day to order is this November 18th of 2020. So don't miss out on your opportunity. Head to who'sitswhatsits.com to order yours today. And if you have any Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Disney fans in your life, perhaps they'd like one as a gift this holiday season. Once again, the site is who'sitswhatsits.com, spelled like who'sitswhatsits.com, or you can click the link in this episode's description. Don't wait, as time to order is shrinking away.
Travel along and stamp those passports in today's Disney Trip Report.
Hello, Derek, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Always good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So much fun to talk about today because we both went on Walt Disney World vacations separately, but in the same month. You went in early October. I went about the third week of October. And obviously, a Walt Disney World vacation right now is different than anything we've ever experienced before.
You can definitely say that.
Yeah, and so, this episode, I honestly wasn't planning on recording this episode. I knew I was going to Florida. This is a trip that has been planned for about a year and a half for my family. There were originally 10 of us going. It was supposed to be a trip with my parents' grandkids and stuff. 6 of them dropped out. It became just me, my parents, and one of my sisters. Because of obvious reasons, some people decided they didn't want to go. But in any case, we still went. And I didn't really plan on doing a whole episode about it, but there was kind of so much to say. And I just felt myself having opinions on a lot of things as I was experiencing them and taking notes on stuff and being like, I think people would want to hear this. So, obviously Walt Disney World was shut down in March, reopened in July. So it was about 3 months after they reopened due to the pandemic that we're talking about. And let's just start with, where did you stay and how did you get around during this vacation?
So I stayed off property and I actually drove down, which is one of the reasons I decided, why not just go? Because I'm driving from Nashville, Tennessee. So I had to fill up 1.5 times on the way down. I'm able to have my car with me and get around, which is really convenient, especially now when all the transportation options aren't available. So that kind of helped me make my decision because all of that was going to be left up to me.
Yeah, now I will say overall, I felt safe at Walt Disney World. I will just start with that overall blanket of the Walt Disney World experience. It felt very safe to me. The riskiest thing I would say that I had to do was take the flight because I'm in Southern California, so I had to get to Orlando. So, flights are flights these days. They're still going out daily, multiple times a day. So obviously it's not a major risk, but it's still a risk.
Where did you stay?
I stayed at the Disney's Beach Club Villas.
Ooh.
And that was fantastic. But let's start just from the experience of, the hotel experience. Of course, one of the nice things about staying on Disney property is the Disney's Magical Express that takes you from the airport to the hotel. And there are a lot of adjustments and a lot of compromises that you have to do right now in order to visit. And one of them, it starts with Disney's Magical Express, and that is they don't take your luggage anymore. Normally, with your Disney's Magical Express, you don't even have to worry about your luggage at the Orlando airport. They take it for you. It shows up at your room 3 or 4 hours later. It is a really nice convenience. That is not available right now. And I understand why. They want as few touch points as possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was also a cost-saving measure as far as cast members are concerned. So that is not available. Have you ever used this service before?
No, I haven't. I've taken the Magical Express, but
Okay.
I didn't even know that they weren't doing the luggage.
Yeah, and it's I feel like such a snob even complaining about this because wow, you had to go to the luggage carousel and get your luggage. It's not a big deal, but it is one of those little touches of extra magic that Disney normally offers that they can't right now. That I think one of the things that we'll talk about today is just a lot of those extra touches of magic missing, and with those missing, it doesn't necessarily feel like a Disney vacation the way that we know it. And I'll keep saying over and over again, these are necessary changes, but it doesn't make it any less magical. Well, it does make it less magical, I should say.
Right. That's where I've been in all my conversations, because I don't know if you're the same way, but I got a lot of messages from people who knew I was down there saying, oh my gosh, what's it like? Tell me this, tell me that. So I totally understand why you would want to do this type of episode, because people want to know. So I keep hearing myself saying over and over again, I totally understand why all these regulations are in place, and I totally support them, but at the same time, I can't deny that they take the magic away a little bit. And it's like a weird dichotomy.
Yes. Number one, I will say I had a great vacation. I do not regret it. I had a wonderful vacation. We are not here to tell people whether or not they should or shouldn't go on a vacation right now to Walt Disney World, because it is a very individual decision right now. There is no right. There is no wrong. Obviously, if the parks aren't getting support, we keep seeing stuff get taken away, and we keep hearing about layoffs and no live shows and all this stuff. And if nobody goes, it's going to continue that way for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So people should go if they feel comfortable going, but if they don't feel comfortable going, they shouldn't go. And that's what it comes down to. So it's a very, very individual thing. The one thing I will say that I feel a little bit of shame on you, Disney, is cost of park tickets right now not decreasing at all. It is the same cost as it was before the pandemic. And to me, that is the one thing I really fault them on. And I get, well, if we lower the cost of tickets, well, then we have to answer to annual pass holders who, aren't getting money back. And my argument would be, well, listen, annual pass holders are already getting deducted hours. They're already getting no park hopping. They're not getting these things that they originally paid for. So what's one more thing to the list is kind of how I feel in that situation. I do feel like people visiting, paying for park tickets for individual days, there should be a discount.
I absolutely agree with you. As a pass holder, I'm shocked and offended for the people who have to pay full price for tickets, because I'm like, oh snap, you're not getting meet and greets, you're not getting fireworks.
Yeah. Another thing at the hotel, before we get to the parks, that I want to mention is one service that my mom loves to take advantage of, and it is very nice. If you're staying in one of the DVC villas, there's a full kitchen and a refrigerator and stuff, and my mom always pre-orders food and has it delivered to our room, and it's just kind of sitting there waiting for us as we arrive. And she did that whole process. She went to the website, filled out the form, faxed it in, the process that she always does. Never got any sort of notice saying, hey, that's not happening right now. And indeed, it's not happening right now. So it's so that's another one of those little services that well, do you really need that? No, but it's a nice little touch of magic that does not exist at the moment. So if you're used to that service, it's not available. And you mentioned fireworks and nighttime spectaculars. One thing they do in the Disney hotels is you can watch the fireworks on a loop on your TV. They have Happily Ever After playing on a channel, which I don't think is a normal thing.
I've never seen that, but man, now the full price ticket makes sense. You're getting your money's worth.
I love the sarcasm. Excellent. So let's talk a minute about the transportation around the resort, because as I said, I was staying at Disney's Beach Club Villas. a resort that I'd never stayed at for this length of time. Plus, one thing, I just learned so much about the resort because I've never spent so much time at a resort. I'm usually like, wake up first thing, go to a park, be at the park till close, go back, sleep a few hours, and leave. I got to enjoy my resort, and I love Disney Beach Club Villa Resort. One of the things that's so nice is it's a super short walk to Epcot and about a 20 or 25-minute walk to Disney's Hollywood Studios, which I think is fantastic. Now, sadly, the water taxis, or the friendship boats, they were not running when I was there. And that was a major bummer for me because those are my favorite way to get around the resort. I love all of the boat options that they have. Of course, they came back like the week after I got home, so they are there now, but at that time that I was there, those weren't available, and that was a bummer.
Okay, see, I need to know all this from you because that's my favorite area because you can get so many different ways to transport you to the parks, but other than the Skyliner, I haven't really seen pictures of which transportation is available right now, even buses.
Okay, I still refuse to do the Skyliner. I will not get on the Skyliner. So you do have the option to pick up the Skyliner at Epcot, transfer, I think, at Caribbean to get over to Disney's Hollywood Studios. I was like, nope, I'm doing the 25-minute walk. I'm not getting in that thing. Not comfortable with that at all. So, but that is an option if you're into it. One thing that I will say is the buses were much less of an issue than I expected. I needed to take buses to Magic Kingdom and Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I hate the buses. Like, just in general, I hate the buses. I hate the whole process of waiting for them. I feel like they're not usually frequent enough. And there's often times where it fills up and you have to wait for like the second cycle or third cycle of buses. And I was like expecting the worst these days. And I couldn't have been more wrong because the buses didn't take long. I'd say 10 to 15 minutes at both days. It could have just been coincidence, but the timing worked out well. And the thing I was really worried about was such limited capacity on the buses due to social distancing, and they like assign you seats. I was like, we're going to have to wait for several cycles. Plus, the people with the scooters, the last few trips I've taken, I just remember when I was a kid, scooters were pretty infrequent, or wheelchairs were pretty infrequent when waiting for a bus. Now, or in more recent years, I feel like it's every time the buses being filled up with those. And, those guests are staying away apparently because for safety reasons. And so it didn't have to deal with waiting for that at the buses and never even had to wait a second cycle. Every time I needed a bus, I got on the next one that came and it was only 10 to 15 minutes. And honestly, probably the best bus experience I've had in over a decade at Walt Disney World.
That does surprise me. I will say you were staying at Beach Club. Maybe someone at a value resort had a different experience with the strollers.
Quite possibly.
But I'm curious, was standing room only not a thing?
You cannot stand.
Okay.
You have to have a seat. They have plastic dividing 3 and 4 seats, sectioning them off, and then they assign it to you. They say, okay, you go to the back row, and they have letters or numbers on the seats, and they essentially tell you exactly where to go, and that's how they're dealing with it. And, it's added work for the bus driver for sure, but it's a system that works, and I don't know if they're sending out more buses or if there are just so many fewer people at the resorts and stuff that you're not dealing with those crazy lines, but it was pleasant for the first time in a long time dealing with the bus.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. We'll get into it, but Disney really never did anything that made me feel unsafe or think, there's probably a better way to do this. And it sounds like the buses fall right in line with that as well.
Absolutely, for sure. And speaking of safety, let's hop to the parks unless there's anything you wanted to add about getting around. You were driving yourself, so that's the easiest way to get around.
Yeah, that was all.
How were the parking lots, though?
The parking lots were great, honestly. As someone who always has a rental car with me at the very least, I have parked in some of those very last rows before and then walked in the 95-degree heat all the way to the front. So I know how experiences can go back and forth with the parking lots. I always parked pretty close to the front, and I think it's just because capacity is at, as they say, 25% or lower.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So now we're at the park, and let's talk about the temperature checks. This is one of the first thing you have to go through. It's a very simple process. It's a very speedy process. They point the gun at your forehead, and, they they say yes or no. The thing that I find interesting and smart about this is it is clearly labeled like these separate tents with, I can't even remember the name of the company, but they have this company's name that is not Disney, like letting folks know, hey, this isn't Disney doing this. If these folks say no to you, it's not us, it's them. So I thought that was smart.
Yeah, it's funny to me because you get these poor people have to get within a foot or two of every single guest that comes in the park. So, props to them for doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, they have masks, and I believe they had face shields as well, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, they're, frontline workers, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see anybody get turned away due to temperature, did you?
I did not. And they do have cool down tents nearby so that if you're, near the cutoff line, you can spend 10, 15 minutes trying to cool your body down just because it's hot. It's Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Which was honestly like the first thing I thought when this was first announced. I'm like, you're going to be doing what and expect people's temperatures to be below what in Florida and the humidity? Like, this is crazy. As easy as the process was, I hope it's not a new norm. I hope that this isn't like the new metal detector that we have to do every time we go to Walt Disney World in the future. Like, that would be very upsetting to me.
It's so funny you say that because I actually said the opposite because there are people who go on vacation, they get the flu, but they say, I already paid for this. I'm not missing out. And then they spread the flu to other people at the park. So I'm like, why not just have a temperature scan all the time?
No, thank you. No, I'll deal with the flu person and just not get near them. That's all. But I get what you're saying, though. Because of the temperature check thing, I think that they definitely made changes to the bag check system. Having people go through temperature checks, then bag checks, it's different. I don't know. How would you explain the process now for bag check?
So bag check, I mean, for me, every time I went through the metal detector, it was an all-in-one scan. So I took out my umbrella because they said it has a lot of metal and I held it out in front of me and I kept my closed backpack on my back and I was good to go. So they've kind of reduced it from having to go through bag check and then the scanner, and now it's just all one process.
Yes. So, yeah, they said take out your phones and your umbrellas. There were a few things they mentioned, and you just hold it out in front, as you said. And it's definitely a much easier process. Obviously, they don't want to touch everybody's bags. That's why this is being done. I will say I think it's easier for something dangerous to happen because of this new system, but I don't know the technology behind it. Maybe it's just as good. But it's definitely feels freer than a physical bag check. But, that's the situation we're in. So I can't even imagine if they had a temperature check and a bag check. Right. I think people would kind of lose their minds.
Right,
so.
Especially since I'm always the person who gets in what looks like the shortest line for the bag check, but then they have, 18 coolers that they want to get checked, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Avoid strollers. That's all I'll say whenever you see a line. Avoid the strollers. Yeah, and then, we go to enter the park, we swipe our magic bands, but no fingerprints anymore. So
which is why when I left, I just gave my magic band to someone else, and I was like, I'm just kidding. I did not do that. But technically, you
could, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I was like, okay, is there some workaround here that I'm just not thinking about? Because, to me, you could do that essentially. So who knows how long that will last. I will say Universal Studios is back to taking fingerprints at this point, and they're wiping down, the fingerprint machine every single time. I'm a little surprised Disney hasn't gone back to that yet, because it doesn't take much to figure out, like, hey, I could buy a 5-day ticket and just hand it off to friends, like as a local, if you don't have an AP, and just share it with people.
Yeah, and my sticking point is that fingerprint machine is not the only thing you're going to touch in the park that other people have also touched. So I don't see the big deal. Like, just have Germex right behind it so that after you scan your finger, you can clean.
Yeah, once again, maybe it's a speed of getting people through so that there's less crowding. That's actually probably a huge part of it. They did, I would say they were very conscious of making sure that people were crowding as little as possible. So it was probably to avoid a line there. Because just think, line for temperature check, line for bags, line for, scanning in. That's basically a bottleneck. So
yeah, that's a great point. Especially since a lot of those scanning areas don't have room. Like, once the line gets a certain length, they have nowhere to go.
Yeah, true. Now let's talk about the big thing. Now we're in the parks. Let's talk about the thing everybody wants to know about. Oh my gosh, I should go to Walt Disney World right now. Nobody's there. There's no lines for anything. This was what people are saying back in July. And that was the case back in July. It is, in my experience, very inconsistent today. I think you actually had it much worse than me. There were certain attractions I did wait a good length for, but there were often ones that I walked right on. So it was just very inconsistent for me. And I would say if you're going with that mentality of everything is a walk-on, false, not true.
Correct. I have seen reports now that we're in November that the crowds have lightened a bit. And I have said for the last few years that October is the new summer at Walt Disney World.
It's the best. It is the best month to go. Although I will say the weather was crap. It was hot and humid, and we got those 10-minute rainstorms almost every day, which for the last 4 or 5 years I've been going end of October, and it has been much better than this year's weather. But hey, it's 2020, so why not?
Well, what I meant was October is the new summer in terms of everyone trying to take their vacation in October now.
They should, because it's the best weather.
Maybe weather-wise, except for I've literally had to leave Walt Disney World early because of a hurricane in October, so I don't know about that logic. But I just feel like it's become so much more crowded. My trips in October are always more crowded than my trips in June nowadays.
I kind of just feel like there's no downtime in the parks at all. At least, definitely with Disneyland. You used to be able to count on January, February, dead parks. No more.
Right.
To me, it's always busy, typically, in a non-pandemic year. So, yeah, I think there were probably a lot, including myself. Like I said, I planned this vacation 1.5 years ago. So it was partially I planned it and they're open, and it's several months after they've opened. So they should have worked out the kinks, was kind of the mentality. And so there were probably a lot of people in that scenario that went. You went to holiday weekend, and I think it was miserably big crowds for you.
Well, technically, I went the whole week before. My last day in the parks was the Friday before. So I wouldn't really call that a holiday weekend, except for maybe that Friday, which was bonkers, wild, crowded. And we did, I think, 4 attractions, and we were there from open until close.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, so to the folks out there thinking, let's just go. It's dead. It ain't dead. Is all I'll say. But, and you know what? Even if the numbers are tremendously less, because they're still talking 25% is what they're saying. Folks, keep in mind, 25% of Magic Kingdom is 20,000 people. And there are no shows. There are no parades. There are none of these crowd suckers, as they call them. I don't think they call them that. But, there's nothing to take away large amounts of people at any period of time. So everybody is in line for attractions. Mm-hmm. And even with 25%, it gets a little crazy. So I would say don't go in with that mentality is a huge tip. And one thing, obviously, I've said time and time again, the thing I love most about the Disney parks is the live entertainment. With that pretty much not existing, cavalcades were what I needed in my life. Mm-hmm. And I was, cavalcades are in every park. They don't have a schedule. And I was a little stressed is the wrong word, but I was concerned. I was I want to make sure I see the cavalcades. And I saw them nonstop just by happenstance. They are constant, especially at Magic Kingdom. And I'm 1,000% for it. I loved these cavalcades. It hurts not having the live entertainment. It hurts seeing so many entertainers being laid off, which just means in Disney's mind, guess what? It ain't coming back anytime soon, because you wouldn't do that to an entire crew of people if you thought it was even 3 months down the road.
Right.
It's going to be a long time. So the cavalcades is what we get for now.
Yeah, thank goodness for the cavalcades, because like you said with the lines, everybody's waiting for, the same 10, 15 attractions. So that's why you think, oh, it's not going to be crowded. And then you're surprised that the lines are long. That's why everybody's waiting for the same things. So thank goodness the cavalcades are at least making people stop in their tracks and not get in line for the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Magic Kingdom, oh my gosh, they were non-stop in Magic Kingdom.
I saw 6 different ones in the hour I was on Main Street.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like I saw 7 or 8 throughout the day. And like I said, I wanted to make sure I saw them in accommodate seeing them. But I was like, I don't even need to. I'm just sitting here enjoying a pastry. Oh, another cavalcade. You just hear the music constantly. Another one. And I was messaging with a friend who does them. And I was like, dude, like these things are constant. And he's like, yeah, they're pretty much nonstop. And they were different every time I saw one.
Yeah.
It's not like I was saying the same thing over and over. You know, in Disney's Animal Kingdom, it's on the waterway. Epcot, it's through World Showcase. And, you know, Disney's Hollywood Studios, it goes down Hollywood Boulevard. It was great. I loved it. But, you know, obviously I want parades back. But these were fantastic little happenings.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the thing that I think a lot of people question, and it's wearing a mask all day long and how well does Disney enforce it. And I will say, in my experience, Disney enforced it pretty darn well. I saw cast members frequently telling people, put it above the nose, put it up, because folks, wearing a mask means covering your mouth and your nose. And I saw cast members constantly. The one place I would say you don't see it so much is in line, because it's not like there are cast members chilling in line looking at us.
My favorite is when someone is standing at like a podium outside a restaurant and a guest is trying to say something that they can hear. And so they get real close and then pull down their mask because they're like, this will help them understand me better. And I'm like, that is not the point.
Yeah. I always, you know, I do think to myself, a lot of the cast members have masks and shields. I'm like, how many people are damaging their voices because they're just yelling all day at people? Because it is tough with no lip reading, with muffled sounds coming out of the mouth. Like, it's not always easy to hear or understand people, even in your own group. It's just a reality.
I think Starbucks was the worst because you hear the constant hissing of the espresso machines and the ice being dug out. And so it was hard every single time to hear those cast members.
I will say, though, wearing a mask all day in a hot Disney park, not nearly as bad as I expected. For me, it's honestly never been about a comfort thing for me. For me, it's a depressing thing. It is very depressing for me to see everybody in a Disney park with a mask on. Should they wear them? Absolutely. It is 100% required and should be. But it's depressing, in my opinion.
Yeah, can I tell you like my 2 sticking points with the masks that I discovered that might be helpful? I agree. I was never really uncomfortable in one the whole time. And I thought with it being 90, 95 degrees every day, I would just be miserable. And I wasn't. Like, you just get used to it and you understand that everyone is doing it and I'm not special and I'm going to do this too. For me, the 2 biggest things were one day I just had an uncomfortable mask and it was just like riding up and pressing against my nose. And so I would just say, maybe test the masks you're going to bring and see if you could wear them for hours at a time and not get uncomfortable.
It's like breaking in new sneakers before a theme park vacation.
It really is, and I don't know why I didn't think about that.
The thing about me is I wear glasses typically. Now, I thought about this in advance and had contacts to wear the entire week, which honestly I typically do anyway if I'm doing a full theme park day for roller coaster purposes and such. But even like my sunglasses just kept fogging up. And that was very annoying to me. And you figure out ways and you're like, oh, okay, put the glasses on the tip of your nose so that your mouth isn't heating them. It was annoying, but a reality. But in any case, you had a second point, I think.
Yeah, the second thing for me, and this was the biggest thing, and this will just tell you a lot about how I spend a day at a Disney park. I love to eat and drink as I walk around the park. That is I know it sounds so dumb, but that's one of my favorite things to do is to get a coffee or to get a milkshake or a cookie and just walk. Like, I have nowhere to be. I have no planned schedule. I just want to enjoy the atmosphere. And with the masks, you can't do that because you need to be stationary while you enjoy your drink. So it's not like let's get coffee on our way to the back of the park. It's let's get coffee, stand here and down it in 10 minutes and then make our way to the back of the park. And I just found that, it to be kind of an inconvenience. Not one I disagree with. It's an inconvenience. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem for me, but I can understand how that would be frustrating. I had a bigger issue with just food options and shops not being available. I ran into this the most at like Disney's Hollywood Studios. I just remember like the Christmas shop was closed. And because here's the thing, with a lot of the smaller shops, there were people at the entrance and the exit, cast members, and they would basically count everybody that goes in and then count everybody that comes out to make sure there were only a limited number of people in there, which totally makes sense. I get it. And obviously, like, Disney made the decision of, we're not going to do this with all the shops. We're only going to do this with our top sellers. So a lot of those, once again, those little like nooks and crannies that are fun to explore and or just go into when you need AC or are sick of waiting in line for rides, weren't available. And like I said, the Christmas shop at Disney's Hollywood Studios was that way. I went to the 50s Primetime Cafe because I was like, oh, I could kill for a peanut butter and jelly milkshake right now. Oh, our bar isn't open. We're not doing to go. The frustration for me was having to mobile order everything. I hated that, especially if you're in a group and like, you know, you don't want to do all individual mobile orders. And then it just becomes this whole thing of like credit cards and paying. And I hated the mobile order requirement that there is right now.
You know, I didn't even think about that. I always use a credit card, but what if someone had either a gift card or cash that they expected to pay with? You wouldn't be able to do that for dining.
Well, here's the other thing that I didn't look into this enough because, frankly, the app is a complete piece of crap, and I hate the app so much.
Okay.
I actually think it's embarrassing that the app is the way it is for a company as large as Disney. I'm like, you guys should have one of the best apps in the world. I'll give you an example, and this is a stupid example, but I wanted to add a credit card to the app. And I already had an old one in there from like my last trip or something. And there's an option on the credit card. It says edit. So I click edit to edit the credit card, change the numbers, all this stuff. It won't let me do anything. And I'm like, why can't I update this card to a current one? What they wanted me to do was go cancel that card and then add a brand new card. I'm like, okay, then why is there an edit option? And why is there only one way to do something in this app by this major corporation that should know better? Like, I just find it to be one of the most un-user-friendly apps ever. And I don't even think this is old man talk right now. Like, this isn't me like, I can't figure this out. I just think it's not designed well. And I do find that there's one way to do everything, and it's not always the smartest way. And even if it is the smartest way, there should still be multiple ways of doing things, in my opinion. I don't know. I hate the app.
I don't have a lot of issues with it, but I know you are not alone with those feelings.
It's so crazy. So yeah, so you did have to mobile order everything. Oh, and one of the things was, like I said, I didn't look too deep into this, but like, we would have normally gotten Disney Vacation Club discounts at a lot of places, and we didn't through the app. But if I had like gone up to somebody to register and like flashed a DVC card, it would have been like, oh great, 10% off, 15%, whatever. Whereas with the, I don't know, do you get AP discounts in the app?
Unfortunately, most of the AP discounts are only at sit-down restaurants. I don't think there are any quick service anymore that do that, so it wasn't an issue for me.
Okay, well, maybe it's the same with DVC. Maybe it's just not as common as I know it's not as common as at Disneyland. So maybe that was just the issue, but I don't know. I just felt like having to pay through the mobile order limited some discount options is how I felt. But I could be completely wrong in that case. I don't know. One thing we got to talk about is the social distancing in lines, because there are markers all over the ground. People, you know, I will say they were really good at making sure you're 6 feet apart in every direction. It wasn't just like the line you're in, there was a dot 6 feet ahead of you. They took into consideration to your left, to your right, and oftentimes there would be an entire kind of row that was just entirely empty so that the row next to it could have the people 6 feet apart. And, you know, they really took care of people that way. It becomes kind of a fun game because it's not just this, okay, move. Like, you actually got to pay attention to where these dots are. And you can tell when people are like figuring it out, like, oh, I have to like keep this entire row empty so that I'm not near those folks. I understand. Did you notice this at all, or was it just me?
Yeah, and also, we should say that in those cases where you are going to have to fill up every row, they've put up plexiglass shields in between the rows. So in those moments when you can't be 6 feet apart, there's glass between you. But I definitely noticed what you're talking about, and it made me laugh because when they first announced, hey, the park's reopening, there will be signage, my thought was, yeah, good luck trying to get guests to read your signs. Like, how often does that happen? But then the complete opposite happened, where the people I encountered seemed like obsessed with staying on their stickers and like, oh, look, the sticker ahead of us is free. We can go now. Oh, don't go. No, you're past the sticker. Stay right here. And I'm like, I mean, good on you, but I did not expect this.
You know what needs to happen? Considering these stickers are going to be there for a long time, I think they need to become part of the Play Disney Parks app. I think we need QR codes on those stickers or something that is really going to encourage people to pay attention to them. It was like a whole separate, it felt like you were playing like a live action board game. You're like, okay, oh, can't go to the next spot. Okay, go 1, 2, 3 spot. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, because my biggest fear was constantly having to tell people, oh, I'm sorry, but you're kind of close to me. And I really didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I love the social distancing in lines. Like, it's great not to constantly have people cramped next to you. It's great to be constantly moving because there's so much space. But I hate, obviously, the repercussion of this is seeing giant lines go out into the theme park and not just in queue areas.
Yeah.
So, a happy medium would be wonderful, I think.
Yeah, a good 25% of cast members right now, their job is to be the person at the end of the line with the sign on the long pole that says, this is the end of the line.
Yeah. And, it works, but it is weird. I mean, there's lines everywhere. You just even small ones, there's just lines everywhere.
Even gift shops, depending on what time of day.
Yes. Yeah. So, it gets crazy. One thing, this is one little stupid thing going back to eating, but the trash cans being open already, I loved this little feature.
Me too, yes.
So basically, a trash can typically has like a flap on it that you'd have to push and get your food in. It keeps the food inside. I'm sure it keeps bugs, flies and stuff out. And it stops the smell from entering the park. Well, to stop people from touching these flaps, they're just like permanently open. And I don't know about you, but it always grosses me out. Like, especially if you see like smeared ketchup on it or something, you're just like, I don't want to touch that. And I was just like, oh, I don't have to. This is open for me already.
I'm so glad it's not just me. I feel the same way.
Yeah, it's the little things, I guess. It's the little things. Let's talk about Fast Pass, because this is another reason why lines can often be long in places. Now, I did Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, waited 90 minutes the first time, which is a pretty good length. And typically, I would say when visiting Walt Disney World, I would, have fast passes booked. And it's really nice going into a park knowing you are definitely going to get X, Y, or Z, which would typically be a long wait, but you planned ahead, you're going to get there. That doesn't exist right now. I go back and forth with this. I like the fact that everybody's on an equal playing ground when it comes to it. And I also like the fact that I don't have to plan my trip 60 days in advance. It was kind of nice to just go and do it, but I definitely missed the knowing I was set situation.
Yeah, I was of two minds. I totally know what you're saying. Like, to go to Hollywood Studios and not have a single fast pass, but only wanting to ride the attractions that have long lines. I was like, from minute one, I was like, all right, this is what this day is going to be. I'm just going to be waiting. Just accept it, because there's not going to be any walk-ons for the stuff I want to do. But it makes the line constantly flow because you're not waiting for the fast pass people to be let in.
That is true as well. So there are definitely pros and cons. I do think that this will be the end of Fast Pass as we know it. Oh. I'm pretty sure when it comes back, it's going to be Max Pass. I don't think it's going to be freebies anymore at Walt Disney World. And I think that they'll use this as the excuse. Oh, we did our studies and, it showed that more people got to experience it with X, Y, or Z, BS. So we're going to charge you for it now, is probably what's going to happen, in my mind.
Well, and also, they're going to need any ways they can get to make money after all this. So I think you're probably right.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I think it'll be a long time regardless. But, how did you feel about not being able to park hop?
Well, since the park hours are so short, that helped make it a little easier, because it's like, by the time I got to another park, it'd only be open for a couple more hours anyway. And I haven't even done everything I want to do at this park yet. But I did miss the flexibility of it all, because it's like, well, I've already said I'm going to be at Hollywood Studios that day. Might as well keep that reservation and go.
I didn't mind it all, because the only reason I ever parked hop was for nighttime spectaculars. And since those weren't going on, because, those wouldn't be every day of the week. But you'd be like, well, I want to be at this park for the extra magic hours, but I want to end at Magic Kingdom for fireworks or whatever. And that would be the only reason I ever park hopped. And so I didn't really miss it since those weren't available. I will say the shortened hours killed me.
Yeah.
Every single day ended, and I was like, I didn't get everything I wanted done.
Yes.
And that's annoying. That's very annoying.
And I expected the opposite because, like we talked about at the top of the show, you just think, oh my gosh, the parks are so empty right now. And then 6 o'clock comes real fast.
Yeah. Now, I do, they are already talking about expanding the hours. I think that's because of the crowds, though. But yeah, I can't remember the last time I left a Disney park and was like, I didn't get to do everything I wanted. Like, it would be a heck of a long day. But I would get it all done. And it was small things like Epcot. I never got to see the new Canada film. And I was like, I wanted to do that, and I didn't get to. And it's not like I was relaxing a bunch of the day. I was moving pretty consistently. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a problem that I would like to see fixed sooner rather than later. Did you do Rise of the Resistance at all?
Yeah, I wanted to know your experience with this. Did you get a boarding group with the first call?
I did twice. Yeah, I should say my sister did twice. We were both sitting there. When it comes to, here's what I'll say about, I've talked to many people who say, I couldn't get a boarding group for either thing, 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Now, the rules have recently changed. I wish it was this way when I was there, but now you don't even need to be in the park. At 7 a.m., you can do it from your hotel or somewhere nearby, which sounds amazing because I was definitely there. I will say this, the park opened at 10 and that is when they release the boarding passes. But if you show up at 9, I got in at 9 and waited for the second time I did it 10 minutes to do Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and then got my boarding pass at 10. So I did get to do it twice. It was not a bad experience for me, but I know a lot of people have had bad experiences with it. I go back and forth with Rise of should it just be standby or, I get both sides of it. I just think, they need to build rides that don't break down constantly. And
so here was my experience with it. I got on at 10 on the dot. Like I saw the button change colors. I clicked it. I thought, I'm definitely getting on. I'm a solo party of 1. I'm here on the dot and it was full.
I don't think solo party of 1 means anything these days because they were giving you an entire vehicle.
Well, right. But I mean, like, usually you have to click everyone's name in your party before you can click join. So I thought I can move just a little bit faster, but it was full.
Gotcha.
And I was like, you got to be kidding me. 2 o'clock comes around, the same thing happens, except I get put in a backup boarding group. And the day before, they had not gotten to the number that I was. So I was like, I'm not going to get a ride this. Luckily, they did call my number like 20 minutes before the park closed. And like you said, I had a whole vehicle to myself. So I'm like, sorry, everyone behind me who didn't get a ride. It's because people like me took up a vehicle that can fit 8.
We should say they are adding plexi and they're going to be using both rows now for 2 individual parties. But yeah, that's a problem for sure. But I'm happy you got to ride it. And I don't know a better way to do it at this point. It used to all be at the time that the park opens. They now do it twice a day to avoid people from crowding around, which I think is good. But honestly, if I didn't get 10 a.m., I don't know if I'd stick. Well, I guess I spent the whole day in the park, so I guess I would try again at 2.
Right.
But, I don't know, man. Rise of the Resistance, it just needs to handle more people and not break down.
I think
easier said than done.
I think they do have the best system for it now. Like, I really can't think of a better way. The only thing I could think is that I didn't go back a second day. Because back when you could park hop, you could go in the morning, and if you didn't get a boarding group, just leave. Just go to a different park. But now it's like, well, I didn't get one at 10, and I already made a reservation for this park. I mean, I guess I have to stay till 2. Okay, I kind of got one at 2. Do I really have to stay till closing just to see if my number gets called?
Yeah, I specifically booked Hollywood Studios for our first day and our last day, just in case we didn't get it on our first day. I was like, let's give the best shot for this.
But to that point, my question, if you hadn't got it in the first day, would you have done a whole second day in Hollywood Studios? Oh, never mind. You did 2 days. You ended up doing both days.
Yeah. To be fair, my second day we probably left around 2. We left right after we did Rise for the second time.
Okay, yeah.
So, and we went back and enjoyed the pool and stuff. But probably yes. Here's the thing. For me, I had done it like 3 times at Disneyland, so it wasn't as big a deal for me. I really wanted my family who had never experienced it and was experiencing Galaxy's Edge for the first time to experience it. Sure. And I'm really happy and grateful we did. I'm not going to lie. I was going to become that guy if we didn't get it like any time. I was 100% going to go to guest services and be like, listen, I understand the situation. I understand not everybody can get it. But we flew in from Los Angeles and Orlando and Boston, and I know that most of the people in this park right now are locals and annual pass holders. Is there anything you can do? And I don't know what they would have said, but I would have tried my darndest. And I know that that's very annoying for their guest relations to hear, but I do feel like if you're paying to stay on property and flying in from out of town right now, you should be given you should be bowed down to, frankly, that you're coming to spend dollars at this place when no one else is willing to now.
Full price at that. Full price, you expect to be able to experience at least everything that's open.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. By the way, Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, I know you're not the biggest fan. It kills me to have heard that those people were let go.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
All the layoffs, like, that's hard because you and I, we love the shows. We love the entertainment.
In fact, I think the last time I did Indiana Jones may have been with you.
Yeah, same.
Might have been. And I remember specifically thinking the next time I come, I've got to be one of the volunteers because I've never done that. And who knows, I think Indiana will stick around at least until the 5th movie comes out and they decide whether or not it's a hit or not to keep it around. But regardless of even if it stays, I think it'll be drastically changed. And I think the whole movie making aspect will be gone. So the volunteers will probably be gone. So I'm like, I need to do it. And now I'm like, I hope I didn't miss that opportunity. I hope that comes back. We'll see.
Yeah, it's hard to even see that far into the future, isn't it? Gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is week by week. But I was going to ask you, how do you feel about making reservations for the parks? Does that annoy you? Do you find it to be an inconvenience? Because it didn't bother me at all.
No.
And frankly, I always know where I'm going to go each day, so...
Yeah, same. It didn't bother me at all because I 100% understand why they have to do that. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Yeah, but I understand why we have to wear masks, and that can still annoy me. But the park reservation... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the park reservations didn't bother me at all. Now, it would have bothered me if they were a real pain in the butt to get those reservations. But, as soon as I bought my tickets, I booked the parks. I had no issues. Perhaps somebody listening tried to book a specific park on a specific day. And I will say once again, with no nighttime spectaculars happening, that was another thing. It wasn't like, well, I got to be at Hollywood Studios on this night because that's the night that Fantasmic's happening or whatever. Like, that would have been more stressful. But like with it's basically an even playing field right now, I feel like, for everybody, as far as nobody can get fast passes. Everybody has to wear masks. Everybody has having a very similar experience, which is not typically the case on a Disney vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're so right. The only inconvenience to me was like the one day we were in Magic Kingdom. It was so crowded that any other trip I would have been like, nope, I'm done. Let's just go to a different park. But it's like, nope, I'm stuck here.
Now, I want to talk about the canceled pre-shows because this bothered me. There were, let me think, just off the top of my head, for Flight of Passage, for Dinosaur, for what else?
I mean,
there were definitely...
You stand in line in the stretching room, which is so weird.
Stretching room, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which really bummed me out because it was my first experience on that attraction, and I had seen the videos since I did an episode about it. Typically, I wouldn't watch videos of something I haven't experienced, but doing an episode, I watched the video. I know it's one of the coolest pre-shows ever, and I knew going in I wasn't going to get to experience that on my first time. And that was such a bummer. Plus, I am not the type of person that rides a ride for the sake of riding a ride. Like, I like the story. Yeah. That's a big part of it for me. And gosh, I missed the pre-shows. Once again, I understand why it's that way, but I missed them.
Yeah. Grab My Black Les Paul. That was gone.
Oh, I didn't even do Rock and Roller Coaster.
Yeah.
Man.
No pre-show.
Yeah, it's Tower of Terror. That's another important pre-show that doesn't exist right now. There's a lot of them. And I just think about the Imagineers who put all of this time into pre-shows. And the thing that bothers me about it is, Disney is going to have this experience in the back of their heads forever now, or at least for the next 50 years. They're going to be like, well, there was that year in 2020 when we had to get rid of pre-shows. So, like, I don't want to think of them having to move forward being like, okay, no pre-shows, make these stories as simple as possible so that we don't have to deal with cutting them if the time comes again. That's what kills me.
True. Now, this is probably one of the reasons not everyone gets to ride Rise of the Resistance, but I will applaud them for keeping every single element of that attraction. Pre-show everything.
Yeah, if they can do that for that, why can't they do it for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stand on your
know.
dot. I mean, even in the Library of the Tower of Terror, technically you could have people stand on dots, watch the movie, and then move on to the boiler room.
It would slow down lines for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. But yeah, I missed the pre-shows, which I know is a weird thing to say because I feel like most people are just like, oh, can we get through the pre-show and get to the ride? But I really enjoy pre-shows, and I think that they're important. Now, one thing that they did, you mentioned earlier, was the plexiglass between lines to separate people. And I gotta say, they did a fantastic job theming these things. Once again, it's one of those things that I saw, and I was like, ooh, I could easily see this becoming a permanent thing, even after there's a vaccine. And I hope that's not the case. Because, I mean, they put permanent structures in place. These were not like, overnight little fixes. These are like cemented in the ground, themed for the most part. There was only one attraction that I was like, okay, this really feels out of place, and that was Tower of Terror. I thought it felt very strange in the lobby of the Tower of Terror. Other than that, I was like, they did a pretty darn good job theming these.
Yeah, the 4 months the parks were closed, you can tell they weren't just sitting around. Like, they were working hard trying to make the parks guest ready.
Yeah. And once again, a necessary thing. I hope, I just keep going back to 9/11 and now metal detectors are a normal thing and all that stuff. And for good reason. But I'm really hoping with this pandemic, all of these things that are happening are because of the situation currently. And once it's quote unquote fixed, all of this will go away and or come back depending on the circumstance. I hate to think that any of this is permanent, but I feel like I'm being very hopeful saying that and maybe not realistic.
Well, gosh, us who go to the parks all the time, even something that stays around for 3 years feels so permanent, It's like Avatar opened only 3 years ago, Pandora. So it's like, oh my gosh, are these going to stay around that long?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Now, of course, hand sanitizer is everywhere. There's plenty of it. One of the things I made sure I had with me in my backpack was hand sanitizer. I got to tell you, folks, you can show up with none and you're set. It is everywhere. Very few of them were empty. I feel like they were refilling them constantly. But I just do want to point out, did you go to Universal Studios at all?
I was going to say this. Yes, go ahead.
They did better, man, because at the Disney parks, they have it at the, entrance and the exit of every attraction, but it is very much up to the guest to use it. Before you board an attraction, on every single Universal Studios attraction, there's a team member there squirting hand sanitizer into your hand, making sure that you put some on before you touch their ride vehicles. Now, what this means on the other end, I don't know. Maybe this means Disney is cleaning their vehicles more often than Universal or something like that. I don't know. But just from a guest standpoint, Universal made me more comfortable in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. It may not even accomplish all that much, but knowing that you're about to get on a ride vehicle where everyone who's touched it has just applied hand sanitizer, it makes you feel a little more at ease.
Yeah, it could totally be theatrics. It's like security theatrics. Yeah. This is health theatrics. I don't know, but I was, I guess, surprised by that. And a little bit like, why isn't Disney doing this? Is it they just don't want to pay a cast member to do that? I don't know. But it just seems silly to me that they weren't.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. One other thing I noticed was, how typically when you're on a ride, if there's nobody sitting next to you, which is a very frequent thing these days, that they'll have to buckle the seatbelt that's empty just to tell the computer, hey, we're all safe. Did you notice that that was deprogrammed from a lot of stuff?
No, I didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah, so I'd be on Dinosaur with an entire row to myself and none of the other seatbelts would be fastened. They did something to the programming so that, number one, the cast members didn't have to keep touching those things, and number two, it just speed people through, considering there are so many more empty seats than there normally are these days. Something's different there, which I thought was really fascinating from a logistics standpoint. The other thing that, is undeniable is we hear announcements all day.
Yes. Yes, I forgot this.
How often would you say they happen? I feel like it probably happened less than I felt like it did, but I felt like it was every 15 minutes.
That's the number I was going to say, 15 minutes.
Maybe it was that often then. I don't know.
I think it was.
So you're constantly hearing announcements over the loudspeakers in a very magical voice that, please keep your mask on, please use hand sanitizer, please social distance. And it was that, I think, more than anything, even more than seeing everybody in masks, made me feel like I was in a Twilight Zone episode. I was like, this can't be real life.
Yes, you're so right. That felt very dystopian, and it felt like something that would happen in the Hunger Games, like where some
Yes.
fake polite voice is telling you only get so many rations during the day, and don't forget that you do have to put your name into the lottery to be chosen to kill other kids. Like, it was that kind of thing.
It's crazy. So that was the thing. Listen, that was my experience on this Walt Disney World pandemic, 3 months after it reopens, vacation. I do want to talk about some stuff I did for the first time, but is there anything else specifically about, the changes in the pandemic situation that you want to touch upon?
The only other thing I just wanted to say is, like, the cast members are doing a great job. It sucks. It sucks that so many have been laid off. Some of them are friends of mine, and I totally get that. I don't want to take away, though, from the cast members who are there, because even though Jeff and I have agreed that some parts of the parks feel less magical now, that is not due to the cast members at all. So I don't want any cast members to be offended when I say, oh, the parks feel less magical, just because, the ones who are there are doing the best they can to make you feel magical.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I can honestly say I never had a bad cast member experience, which is actually or even witnessed one. Not even me personally, but I didn't even witness one where I was like, what is going on here? It kind of seemed more peaceful than ever before in a Disney park. Part of it, I think, is there are just less people. I noticed less children. I noticed less scooters. I noticed less of a lot of stuff. And I just had to keep going back, 25%. I guess 25% is what I kept saying to myself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I didn't see any bad interactions with cast members at all. So I 100% agree. It's certainly not the cast members' faults. And I miss the ones that aren't there, is what it comes down to. But I just want to talk about some of the newer stuff that happened, because this was my first time, as I mentioned, with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Was this your second time?
No, this was my first time, too.
Okay, now this, several times on this podcast, 2 years in a row, for my favorites of episode that I do during the hiatus, you mentioned the thing that you were looking most forward to was Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So How was it for you?
Yeah, and I went to the parks, I think 3 weeks before it opened, always thinking I'll come back once it opens, and then everything happened.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so cute. I rode it twice. It is adorably charming. And I will definitely wait in line for that every time I'm at Hollywood Studios.
All right. Glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, no. All right.
No, it was totally fine. I enjoyed it. It's it's in the wrong place. It should have never replaced the Great Movie Ride. That's my frustration with it. It's a totally fine, pleasant ride. Super cute. Not mind-blowing, in my opinion.
No.
I thought I think theme park people love to give Universal Studios crap for using screen and projection constantly. I mean, this whole thing is a projected ride for the most part. I get it. There are other parts to it, but it's heavily projected. And, it's cute. It's cute, is what I'll say. It didn't blow my mind, and it did make me miss the Great Movie Ride even more. I was like, oh, that's I wanted something that was going to take that attraction's place to blow my mind. And it still frustrates the hell out of me that right across the way is an animation courtyard with a building full of Star Wars crap that needs to be removed, since there's now a whole Star Wars land that could have become Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in a more appropriate home. And we could have updated the Great Movie Ride with Fox and all the other stuff that Disney owns now. I don't know. Maybe I just can't get past that. But I thought it was totally pleasant. I did it twice, so I certainly enjoyed it.
I hear you. I really do. I guess I just wasn't expecting to have my mind blown by a Mickey attraction. So for an attraction to make me smile from beginning to finish, that's all I could really ask for.
Yeah, it's cute. And I will say, the different ride vehicles, you get very different experiences. So make sure you do it 4 times if you can in each different ride vehicle, because it's a different experience for sure. I did dinner at Be Our Guest for the first time. I'd never done dinner there before. And I've always heard people be like, don't do it, don't do it. Now, it's expensive, but the food was delicious.
It is quite pricey. I'm curious. I assume the tables in the ballroom are more spaced out, because when my co-host Jeremy and I dined there for dinner, the table beside us might as well have just been seated with us. We were so close to them.
I don't know. They were definitely spaced out, and Beast doesn't meet with you. He just comes out and bows, essentially. So I didn't, honestly, the meet and greet I didn't really care. My mom had never experienced Be Our Guest, and that was the only time available. So I was like, okay, let's do it. But I really, like, one of the best meals I had on the whole trip. So I really enjoyed the dinner there, I will say. Something I gotta say, I really dislike the new Cinderella Castle colors. The whole Instagram saturation castle, not a fan.
Jeff, I totally agree. I was willing to give it a chance because in some pictures, I actually like them. Like, I think it looks different depending on the lighting.
To me, it's just not the same castle. It's not Cinderella Castle anymore. Not.
And seeing it in person, my first thought was, those colors don't even match each other. They clash.
Yeah, it's not that pale, like, pink that when you saturate it on your phone gets super saturated. Like, I think it looks gross. And listen, they can only go to a certain color temperature at this point, or else it's going to screw up their nighttime spectacular projections. I just want it back to what Cinderella Castle looks like.
Listen,
I don't know.
I agree. And I'm typically not a hater of that type of stuff, but I'm like, there's a reason you don't buy clothes that are salmon and gold, because those colors don't look good together. I'm sorry, they don't.
Yeah, I really didn't like it. Saw Awesome Planet for the first time. How awesome. It was, it's fine. It was better than the Circle of Life thing that was there, I would say.
100%.
The Epcot Preview Center is fantastic.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it got me so excited. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know when we're going to get Guardians of the Galaxy anymore, but it's still fun to think about it,
Yeah.
A great presentation.
Props to, like, if you need an attraction that the sole purpose is to hype people for what's coming, they nailed it.
Yeah, did a fantastic job. I do want to touch on, I had some amazing, and this isn't a Universal podcast, but I have to say, I did Universal Studios, and Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure roller coaster is by far, hands down, my favorite roller coaster of all time. I say that not being a thrill park guy. I'm much more about having fun on a roller coaster than being scared. This was phenomenal. Have you done this?
I did it last fall, and this trip I said, I want to go to Universal just so I can ride that as many times as I can. We went back to Universal the next day because I'm like, I love this coaster so much.
I waited 35 minutes for it.
So last fall, I rode it twice in a row because the first time was a walk-on, but this time we waited, I think, 40 minutes every time. Or
it's mind-blowingly good, and all I'll say is know as little as possible going in, because I had a jaw-drop moment that I was not expecting on this roller coaster. And I've heard this from so many people. I've heard, it's amazing. I was like, how amazing can a roller coaster be? All I got to say is they have a lot to do to top themselves with this whole Velocicoaster in order to beat what they did with Hagrid's. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've decided it's in my top 5 Orlando attractions.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. I feel like it would take a lot for a roller coaster to be in my top 5, but I don't know. I would have to think about it. It blew me away. The other thing at Universal that blew my mind is the Bourne Stuntacular. So well produced. I teared up. I got emotional. First of all, let me just preface this by saying I've never seen a Bourne movie in my life. Those are not my genre of film. I don't care about their story. It is so well produced that, number one, I was like, this could change Broadway. Like, if they use this technology on Broadway, this is a game changer. And I think it just emphasized how much I'm missing live theater right now, because to see live performers on stage was just beautiful to me. It really made me emotional. And I will say, I don't think it's a great stunt show. I think the stunts are kind of weak, but the production is top-notch, phenomenal. Some of the best I've ever seen.
Yes, the LED screen that they use is so incredibly believable and immersive. Like, there are actors on the movie on screen that there were a couple points where I'm like, are those live actors? No, they're on screen. They're on screen.
Yeah. The LED screen mixed with the live action sets and actors, you cannot tell the difference. Maybe in the front row you can, but like, it's not a huge space or anything. I wasn't that far back. It is so well done. Yeah. Even if you're not a Bourne fan, make sure you see it the next time you're at Universal. Mind-blowingly good. Yeah. So Universal brought me some of my best memories from this trip. Plus, I got to walk through Halloween Horror Nights mazes, which is something I didn't think I'd be able to say in 2020. And oh, the joy that brought me. And the tribute store alone for Halloween Horror Nights was also phenomenal. And I spent all of my money there. Oh, so much fun.
I know. I really applaud them for at least putting something out there for the fans. And I know they did it for themselves, too, because it's celebrating the 30th year. But I was so happy with what they did and honestly really pleased with it. I thought the 2 houses they put out were as good as I could have asked for.
Yeah. Oh, so good. In any case, that's all I got. Oh, no, I need to talk about the hotel pool for a quick second because
it's the best pool with the best water slide.
And I've heard you say that on your show before, and I was like, how great can a hotel pool be? You have to understand, I do not spend time at Disney resorts. I am in the parks constantly. So being forced to stay at my hotel, I was at the pool a lot. In fact, your co-host Jeremy joined me one of the nights, and they have multiple pools in one giant area. They could charge admission to this thing. They have multiple pools. They have a lazy river. They have a whirlpool. They have a pirate ship slide. They have sand on the bottom of the pools. This thing was phenomenal. Beach Club Villas are like my new favorite go-to place at Walt Disney World. Love it.
Totally. And even just your view, like you're right by the lagoon. The resort just beside you is so quaint.
It's fantastic. Yeah. In any case, had to mention that, but now let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Derek, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go first because feel free to stop me if this is too long. I got kind of out of control, and this is not so much trivia as it is like a mini quiz.
Okay.
So COVID-19 is the reason you're doing this podcast right now. It's the reason the parks are so different. So I have some questions all related to the number 19 and to see if you can guess the answers. Okay?
All right.
Hopefully it's like a lightning round, quick thing, but we'll see. Okay, Walt met this animator in 1919, and they were both 19 when they opened the studio together.
Ub Iwerks.
Yes, correct. This 1967 film was the 19th animated feature from Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Sleeping Beauty?
No, it's The Jungle Book.
Jungle Book. Okay.
This interactive attraction at Disney MGM Studios opened in December 1990, just 2 months after Walt Disney World's 19th birthday.
December of 1990, you said?
Yeah.
What did Muppet Vision was 1991, but did it do an open early in 1990, December 1990? Star Tour? No, not Star Tours. Okay.
This is very special to you.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set adventure?
It's correct.
It was the word interactive that threw me. I was like, is that interactive? But I guess so. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
This is the red. So technically that was the first attraction to open at Walt Disney World after the park turned 19. So there you go.
There we go.
This is the red alert code in Monsters, Inc. that calls in the Child Detection Agency.
Oh, I don't know. Code 19.
2319.
2319, okay.
And last but not least, the highest grossing film of all time worldwide was this film, distributed by Walt Disney Studios in 2019.
Some Marvel movie, Avengers Endgame.
Yes, that is it. Highest grossing ever.
Fantastic. Well, I don't have a lightning round for you, but while I was in Florida, our mutual friends Aaron and Ruben took me to a special Halloween light show available in the community of Celebration, Florida, which of course was that quote-unquote town that Disney built. And do you know what the name of this light experience is?
I know I've seen it because I saw you all post about it. No, I really don't.
It's called The Lights on Jeter Bend, Jeater. I think it's basically Halloween through Christmas. Folks, if you're in Florida and you have a way to get around with a rental car or whatever, check out The Lights on Jeter Bend. It's like, it's not as big as the Osborne spectacle of dancing lights, but it is crazy to think that like a real life neighborhood and all the neighbors collaborated to do this thing together. It's wild, and I love having done it. Like, it was fantastic.
And really, you have no excuse not to, because the parks close at like 4:30 p.m. and there are no nighttime spectaculars.
And it was free, so check it out. It was so cool. Well, Derek, thanks so much for coming on the show to chat about our experience during COVID Disney, I guess is what we'll call it. But it's different, but it's still magical to a point. And I had a great time there, so thanks for sharing your experience.
Absolutely. Despite all the things I have to say and give caveats, well, you're going to miss out on this, it doesn't change the fact that I had a blast. So thanks for having me on.
Now folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode, be sure to check it out as we discuss the ABC sitcom The Middle and their visit to Walt Disney World in our Primetime at the Park segment. And next week on the show, I have a special interview for you. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. Also, don't forget that your last chance to order your Honey, I Shrunk the Kids face mask is on November 18th, so don't wait and forget. Do it right now as this episode is ending. Just visit whositswhatsits.com or click the link in this episode's description. And for bonuses and to become part of the DCTC community, visit patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.